You're gonna check? Good. We're just checking to make sure that it actually is on. So.
It's spinning going on in Kevin's room. Oh, I see where you went.
We're good. All right, we're good to go. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Brooklyn City Council to order. Can you please make sure your mics are unmuted? And Mary Jo, can you call the roll, please?
Kevin Tansky,
Here.
Sue Grodick,
Here.
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Oh, she has her earbuds. Here.
here, Mary Belbeer.
Here. Here.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, we thank you for the chance that we have to meet once again as a council. We thank you for the safety that you've given to each and every one of us and our families throughout this time. We pray that you please continue to protect our residents, our public, back to a sense of normality very soon. We thank you for our children they've shown our continue to give them wisdom, as well as to our governor, our president. I pray again, you help us to get through this quickly, and the loss of life we will in Jesus' name. Amen. We have several minutes to approve. The first is from the meeting dated March the 9th, 2020. Are there any comments or questions regarding those minutes? All right, go ahead and unmute. And Mary Jo, can you please make a motion to adopt?
Let me just on for just a moment, please. For this is for the March 9th.
You have to unmute.
We can't hear her.
Go ahead, Kat.
We can't hear Mary Jo.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
How about now, okay? To approve the minutes of March 9th, Kevin Tansky. Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan
Yes.
Shaki.
Meg Ryan.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Right, very good. Thank you. And next we have the minutes from the meeting dated March 16th. Are there any comments or questions on those? I'll make a motion that we adopt. Right, I'll make a motion that we adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky. Kevin Tansky. I can't hear him. Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes. Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. And lastly is the minutes of our meeting dated March the 23rd, 2020. Are there any comments or questions on those? I'll make a motion that we adopt. All right. I'll make a motion that we adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan
Yes.
Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Very good. This time we'll have the public session. We requested that anyone who had questions in regards to this meeting were to email Mary Jo, and we had no emails for any questions. So at this time, we'll now move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin this evening with the Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. The next Recreation Board meeting will be held on May 18th in the Rec Center meeting room at 7 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Domestic Abuse Commission, Councilman Ryan Shocker.
Thank you. The coronavirus pandemic has caused concern for those that work in the field of domestic abuse. Last week, the Domestic Abuse and Child Advocacy Center did a PowerPoint presentation on how the two are linked and how causes of DV may increase due to stay-at-home orders. Governor DeWine and his team have made sure to ensure that while there is a stay-at-home order in place, this does not apply if you do not feel safe at home. Nonprofit organizations continue to provide the necessary services for domestic and child abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out or have them reach out to the Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center at their 24/7 hotline by calling or texting 216-391-4357. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is our School Board Liaison, Councilwoman Mary Belbeer.
Thank you. The school district has hired a new football coach, Pat Costanzo. He is formerly from Brooklyn, and everyone is excited about the new coach, hopefully to turn the team around. The school district also purchased new Chromebooks for all students, which will help with the studying. This coming up Wednesday is the next school board meeting, April 29th, and they are going to try to discuss graduation procedures, trying to make graduation available for all and to do something nice for the seniors. If you're interested in watching the school board meeting, you can live stream it April 29th, and you can actually view the meeting. And also, they are still having the sign up for the lunches. So sign up on Monday for lunch pickups. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on with reports of council. We'll begin this evening with Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe during this pandemic. Brooklyn has done a great job by complying with state and local officials during these uncertain times. The teachers and staff of Brooklyn City Schools held a citywide parade on Monday, April 20th, led by the Brooklyn Police Department. The cars were decorated with balloons and homemade signs to show their hurricane pride. Parents, students, and community members lined the route to wave as the parade moved throughout our neighborhoods. Thank you to all the teachers and staff of the Brooklyn City Schools for showing their support for our students. We will continue to move forward in our community, and we'll get through this crisis together if we can continue to work and respect one another. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. Next up is Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you. I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Next up, Mrs. Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. This has been a wild primary election season. This is your final reminder that mailed ballots had to be postmarked by today to count. But if you still have your ballot in hand, you can take it directly to the Board of Elections through a contactless drop-off box tomorrow by 7:30 p.m. when voting ends. In addition to the worried increase of domestic abuse during this coronavirus, depression and neglect are also a worry for health professionals. The Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services announced the launch of a new mental health COVID care line for Ohioans. Trained staff will be available to provide emotional assistance to anyone struggling with mental health concerns due to the ongoing stress of the pandemic. The number to call is 1-800-720-9616. All calls will be confidential. And finally, I do want to encourage everyone to reach out to friends and family, especially those that may be elder or live alone. It's a difficult time, I'm sure, living alone right now. I know I'm very thankful to be quarantined, at least with my husband and dog right now. But I encourage you to reach out to friends and family, send a card in the mail, pick up the phone, or even try and schedule a virtual hangout if possible. Together, we will get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Selhertz.
Thank you. As Mr. Tansky mentioned, it was nice to see the school teachers and everybody with their parade. It went in 3 different directions, and it was just community spirit. Really nice thing was this past Friday over at Brooklyn Point, there were probably about between 80 and 100 vehicles that organized in the Ross Dress for Less parking lot, went around Brooklyn Point, and everybody was waving to the residents. It was just kind of like a little bit of a tearjerker thing. So it's really nice. So it's community spirit. Talking about community spirit, there's also the food drive tomorrow. Instead of being behind City Hall, now it is over at the Rec Center. Please drive in through the Memphis Avenue entrance. They'll take you around the building and get you loaded up. You do not have to get out of the car, and you'll go back out on Memphis Avenue. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. I would just like to add one more thing on the election deadline tomorrow, and that is to please remember to support issue 25, which is the Brooklyn City Schools renewal that is very critical to their financial stability. And also the address of the Board of Elections, I believe, is 2925 Euclid Avenue. And as Mrs. Shockey said, Mrs. Ryan Shockey said, there's a contactless drop box. You just drive up in the back parking lot, throw your ballot in, and be on your way. Today, Governor DeWine announced the first steps in restarting our economy. The specific information is already all over the media, and it's also available at coronavirus.ohio.gov. This also will involve a ramp up in testing and tracing. Pardon me?
Mrs. Pucci, you cut out there for a second, just when you mentioned Governor DeWine. So if you want to start back from there.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Today, Governor DeWine announced the first steps in restarting our economy. This information is already all over the media, and the specifics are available at the website coronavirus.ohio.gov. This also involves a ramp up in testing and tracing with certain benchmarks that must be met before the other sectors of our economy are able to open. As a state, we've done a good job in limiting the spread, but unfortunately, we still have a way to go. I would like to thank the mayor, directors, chiefs, department heads, and employees for all of their efforts during this crisis. We've been presented with a history-making situation with no template to follow. From an economic perspective, all levels of government are going to be financially impacted. Fortunately, though, for our city, we were already in a very good financial position prior to the pandemic. My hope is that we will not have to make any significant reductions. However, at this point, there's really no way to predict what the decline in revenue will be. And I'm so sorry that we had to lay off some of our part-time employees, and I hope that we're able to call them back sooner rather than later. I also know how many of our residents have been impacted. Many are laid off. Many have had either their hours or pay reduced. And I know how stressful it is. And I pray that our residents, employees, and their families stay safe and well, and that our financial recovery is quick. Residents should also know that we are all still working for them. I've actually received numerous calls from residents over these past weeks, some just to talk, some to ask questions, and some who also need issues addressed. So we can all be reached at our phone numbers and also through our email. And that one other thing, I do want to thank the volunteers who are distributing food every Friday. I did have an opportunity last Friday to volunteer, and every single resident who came up to get the food, they are just so grateful. This is really a great group of people. I'm not going to name people because I know that I would leave some out, but there have been many people and businesses who have donated money, food, and residents have been able to get a bag of non-perishables. Last week there were also fresh fruits and vegetables, bread, and then afterwards we were able to drop off some bags of food to some elderly people who were not able to get up there. So this is a really good thing that just an average group of residents are doing for our community, and I just want to thank them. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pucci. Next up is Mrs. Belbier.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the police and fire department that came out to support our residents' children who were celebrating birthdays. It was so nice to see them lining up and parading around the city for these children. And the children were just ecstatic, waiting on the sidelines, seeing this. What a wonderful tribute. And I thank the police and fire department. I'd also like to thank the heads of our departments, especially the service department, the service garage, Mr. Verba, for going on social media and explaining what our pickups are. I know I was somewhat confused about how things were going, and it seemed like the stories were changing, and just what to do with our compost, what to do with our recycling. So it was nice to hear that. And I was able to extend that to residents that were asking me questions. So I sincerely appreciate them clarifying so many questions. I too, as Ms. Pucci, would like to thank the Brooklyn Acres for all the wonderful work that they've been doing with the food giveaway. It's not easy to do this, to orchestrate it. First of all, you're shopping for mounds and mounds of food. Not only are you shopping, you're packing it and you're delivering it. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I can only appreciate all those that are so dedicated to doing this. God bless them and God be with them. And my mom used to always have a saying when we were growing up: you can never outdo God. You do something nice for someone, it comes back to you twicefold. And lastly, my unsung hero for the week is Sister Corita out of St. Augustine's Church on West 14th Street. She's a little nun, aged about 83 years old, who, with the help of tremendous amount of volunteers, feed 700 people a day. It is overwhelming. They deliver food to the shut-ins, to those that are poor, and more it's to families that really, really need it. So this week, she is my unsung hero. And that pretty much completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belbier. Yeah, this has certainly been an interesting ride the last month and a half, that's for sure. And I am glad to be back at City Hall. At least a couple of us are here to be able to have this meeting. I'm also very grateful for the technology that we're able to meet together for this. I want to say a special thank you, as already been mentioned, to our police and firefighters. They do a good job every day. Council got an email today update from Chief Paul talking about exactly what's going on in the fire station. A very good news from what he said about what's going on locally in our area regarding this virus. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm sure the mayor will share some more of that here in a moment. I'm sure that many of you are like me and my family, and you're ready for things to get back to normal and to get back to being Americans again. For the most part, Ohioans have abided by the stay-at-home order, and we've accomplished the continuously talking about flattening of the curve. Right? That seemed to be a thing that was talked about quite a bit. Not only did we flatten the curve, we basically smashed it. Compared to what was saying, the goal was set by the DeWine administration and most other states, again, was to flatten the curve as to not overwhelm our healthcare system. And that made a lot of sense. And I'm sure we all remember, I'm going to share this, this with you on my screen here. I'm sure we all remember this particular slide that was put up many, many times about flattening the curve for our residents, and talked about how we didn't want to overwhelm the system and how it was very important that we did that. And as you can see there, we were expecting a spike at some point around the middle of March of up to 62,000 cases per day if we did not mitigate anything. Of course, we did a lot of mitigation here in Northeast Ohio as well as around the country, and they expect that peak to be 10,000, almost 10,000 a day. And that was supposed to happen sometime in mid-April. Well, now, according to, this is the Ohio State, from Ohio State, the Disease Institute of Ohio State, when our peak actually came, it was actually right around 1,300 per day. And so that's an 87% decrease than what the experts were predicting. And so that's a huge testament to those in Ohio that have stepped up and have really listened to what the experts had said. And each and every death is tragic, no doubt about that. But thankfully, this mitigation has limited that loss of life. However, I will say it does seem that Americans now are living in somewhat of fear inside of our homes, and you see a lot of reports of afraid to reopen businesses, and if we do that, it may cause more people to die. Well, Americans really have never lived in fear. No American wants to see anyone die, but is it possible to do both? Is it possible to go about our business, and is it possible to save lives? Can we return back to some semblance of normality and still continue mitigating this illness? And I'm of the firm confidence that as Ohioans and Americans, that absolutely yes, we can. And as Governor DeWine mentioned today, it's time that we start to reopen Ohio. Back when this pandemic first hit, no one, including the experts, really knew what we were dealing with. Now they have a much better idea. We didn't know really anything about this as a brand new virus. That's why it was called a novel coronavirus. Remember when we were told at first that don't wear masks, they don't help, don't wear masks. And now we're being told wear masks, they help mitigate the illness. Well, so who was right and who was wrong? Well, the answer is no one was wrong. It's just we're learning more about this illness as we go along. We know the risks now that are involved in this. We know how to minimize them. You say, well, how can you say that? Well, every day, people that shop at Walmart, at Aldi, at Home Depot, all of our big box stores that people shop in, they have taken steps to mitigate that. And it is time, in my opinion, to allow Brooklyn businesses to reopen, because I'm confident that it's not just the big box stores that can open up and implement social distancing and safety protocols in the business. The bottom line is this: the closure of businesses, and now we're even seeing hospitals that are closing and laying off workers because there's no one there. It has had a devastating impact upon Ohioans and Americans, and will continue to do so. And that in and of itself will cost human lives, plain and simple. So now that the risks are more well known, people can decide for themselves whether going to the store is worth the risk or not. Many will opt to stay home as their choice, and that's fine. Many businesses will likely stay home or stay closed for now, and that's their choice as well. And I'm not against closures, and I'm certainly not against safety. But the government is not any smarter than Americans or Ohioans. Americans have always taken on risk and responsibility for themselves, and this time should not be any different. Let's let Americans do what Americans have always done, and that's to work hard and overcome any and all obstacles. I do applaud the moves of our governor today, and I would hope that the remainder of these closure orders will be removed sooner rather than later. It is time to get back to work and let Ohioans decide for themselves what is too risky and what is not. I found this quote when I was studying for one of my government classes, actually at the beginning of last year. It was by Benjamin Franklin, and he said this: "Those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And for decades and for centuries now, America has stood for liberty. And I look forward to seeing Ohio and the rest of the country open back up so that we can continue moving forward as Americans. And that concludes my report for this evening. We'll now move on to the mayor.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. I've been on mute all night, so. I hope everyone is trying to stay safe out there. It's been a really difficult time for a lot of people, and depending on your work responsibilities, it's a very stressful time for many people in our community. I think Mrs. Pucci already said this, Meg touched on there. Some of us are home alone and don't have that reach out, and hopefully people like this senior director and the assistant are helping that as they call seniors daily and try to ensure that they have people to talk to and their needs are met. I know that some parents are, trying to pull their hair out right now as they're trying to teach their kids new ways and go back to what they learned in the first, second, fifth grade, sixth grade, and really valuing teachers right now and appreciating daycare workers because of what they have to deal with on a daily basis. So all of our lives are changed, and hopefully we find our way out of this and we can kind of go back to some normalcy at some point. But for me personally, this has made me very appreciative of the things that I have. And hopefully that's the one thing that we could take out of it, is take a look at our lives and even the simple things, the things that we miss, either just going out to restaurants, enjoying a nice meal, or, just being able to go in the park without a face mask on. Those little simple things that, I think we'll grow to appreciate once this is all over, even more so. So again, thank you to my directors. This has been such a dynamic thing. This is an unprecedented thing for every government. And as I was on the phone with John Husted last week on a conference call, he was talking about the plans that are going forward as far as the announcements today, and basically said none of them were on the same page. And I don't think you'll find a consistent government out there, a consistent way of business practices out there, because there's no game plan for this. And people are just doing the best they can with the knowledge that they know, trying to listen to the experts. I do not have a medical degree, so I've been leaning on the experts in the state government to kind of give us guidance here, educate us as best as we can, listen to our first responders as they've had to deal with a lot of these dynamic situations in the past. So, I thank all my directors, my chiefs, our law director, and our finance director that have been hit with a lot of different things as the different bills keep coming forward in front of us. We need to learn different ways to treat the employees, we have to account for our financing, try to get seek reimbursements from some of our expenditures that we're getting right now. So again, thank you for everything that you've done to the team. And City Council for being appreciative. I know that we're looking at an extension on some of the ordinance that we passed last time, and understanding that this is impacting us all, including the city employees, and that we have to understand that their lives are impacted. They have the same kind of issues, taking care of their kids, looking for daycare options, looking for ways to juggle between two working parents and get everything done. So recognizing those needs and giving me the allowance to protect our employees throughout this period of time. A lot of people asked why we haven't sent out stuff in writing. And just as I explained, I think that's exactly the reason. This has been so dynamic. If anyone has participated in plating up a newsletter for the city or any kind of publication, first of all, we use the county for a lot of this, and even if we used an individual printer, these are not considered essential businesses, and many of them were furloughed in the county. So by the time that you get something plated up, printed, and then go to a mail house, it takes 3 to 4 weeks. Things are just changing too quickly. We've had to rely on social media. We've had to rely on alerts. I know Jack did a update through My Sportsman to everybody in the rec center. Karen has used her My Senior Center line multiple times to send out messages to the seniors. So we're doing the best we can. And unfortunately, with just the fast pace of this virus, the fast pace of the information, the many unknowns, that's why we've had to use social media as our means to get things out primarily. I'm going to give some updates for the city department, but again, as you listen to the governor today, and I assume that many people get their news and they're getting bombarded with information because this is what's on the news at all times. We're in not that even greater position today with the announcement than we were before the announcement, because things sort of remain the same around here. We're still trying to juggle and kind of decide what is the best way to protect our employees. And we are also legally constrained on many of the decisions that we still need to make, the rec center and the senior center. So as I give these updates, understand that we still have a lot of information that we need to go through, and we're constrained by the governor's orders as well. So our ability to make decisions only fall into what's allowable by home rule. So given the governor's orders today, we will continue to not rent out any of our community rooms. That includes in the fire and senior center. There will be no recreational activities that proceed on until the phase-in approach that, and even then, we are going to look at ways to limit it. The governor has ordered there's no groups beyond the 10, so that very severely limits what we're allowed to do until that rule changes, plus the rule of recreation centers are allowed to open. Our senior center is still closed, and we will continue by appointment only on the rest of our buildings. That includes City Hall, our police department, our fire department, and our service department. Our fire has been fully functioning this entire time. And they have all the personal protective gear that they need. So we're thankful for that. There are many businesses and residents that have been very generous with all of our city employees. And let me be the first to just say thank you on behalf of everybody. If you saw on social media and in the news, we've added 2 new firefighters, and that was a nice addition, especially during this time. The process was delayed because of COVID. One of the physical testing requirements is a lung capacity test, which we were unable to do because of the hospitals being limited. But finally, we were able to get that in through a university hospital. In our police department, Chief Melky wants you to know that we're continuing to operate using social distancing. We are not doing roll call like we usually do, a group of 5, 6, 7 police officers in one little room. They're getting all of their updates via email, and they're limiting themselves into the space areas to make sure that there's adequate distancing. Again, they are adequately stocked with personal protective gears. And he also would like me to announce that as of next week, he already has 3 conditional offers out to 3 new officers that will be sworn in the first week of May, and will be starting and on or around May 10th. In our service department, this is where the most questions came up during this time. Right from the start, as soon as we made the decisions to close different buildings, we stopped bulk pickup, and then typically we start composting on April 1st. And so we did not start composting at that particular period of time. Composting is one of the things that we've had the most calls for, because you can imagine a lot of people have a lot of free time right now. So what they're doing is cleaning up their yards. So they wanted to get that composting out of the way. And Mr. Verba did go on to social media and address a lot of questions. We've had alerts go out. Everything's been pretty consistent, so I don't know where the inconsistency comment came from. But just to go over some of the things that he already mentioned on social media, we were not at full strength. Our primary objective in the service department at this time was not only keeping our employees healthy, but picking up the trash. That is the one aspect of the service department we wanted to keep consistent, just for health and safety reasons. So trash has not been interrupted in any way. Compost will resume as of May 4th. There is a bin outside of the service garage that at any after hours you could take your composting, and during hours you can make appointments to drop your composting off, and they will open the gate. As far as bulk pickup, you can make appointments right now to drop off your bulk items during the service garage between 7 and 2:30, 216-635-4232, and you'll just have to bring those up. But as of May 7th, which is a Thursday, and May 8th, bulk pickup will resume. We are going under the assumption that there are going to be a lot of items to pick up because it has been not picked up in a month and a half. So May 7th and May 8th, you will not have to make appointments like usual or email in. Just put your items out on your lawn, either the Thursday or Friday. And if it's not picked up Thursday, it will be picked up Friday. So be patient with them. We're assuming that there's going to be a lot of pickup, and we will get all of that information out on social media. But if you do get questions about it, City Council, if you could pass that on. Other things, in addition to the pandemic, we had numerous things go on at City Hall that were sort of unexpected. One of those things was recycling. So as you know, I've mentioned this to City Council. We were using Cleveland for our trash and our recycling, and Cleveland is no longer going to continue with our recycling contract. It was just too cost prohibitive for them to take our recycling. So this is something that we've had to change midstream, and we are taking all of our recycling out, but this comes at a cost of just over $30,000 for the city for this year. We will be exploring our options at the end of the year. Director Verba did get right on it, found some options for us, and a good short-term contract for us to get through this period of time. But we do want to remind residents, because of this additional cost, we won't be passing on this cost to you, but we want you to be cognizant of how you are recycling and to limit the contamination. If you contaminate the load too much, then our recycling can be rejected, or it will cost us a penalty fee. So again, please remember only the basics for recycling: aluminum cans, cartons, glass, paper and boxes, and plastic jugs. If you are in doubt, you can go to the county's solid waste district's website and check out what's accepted and what's not. But we would rather you put it in the trash if you're in doubt and you don't want to look, than put it in the recycling and contaminate it. One of the big obstacles are plastic bags. So please, no plastic bags in the recycling. That even means a container. Everything needs to be loose in the bin. I know one of the confusing things, even for, say, my husband at home, is he sees the little recycling symbol on containers and just assumes it's recyclable. But that's not how it works. That recycling number and sign are for the manufacturers, for the companies that are using it to break it down. So don't rely on that little recycling symbol and just assume that it's recyclable. Also, Shred Day, which is another thing that residents look forward to, cleaning out their house. We did have to move it. It was scheduled in April. It is rescheduled for August 1st from 10 to 1 at the Recreation Center. And additionally, we're hoping that to keep our service employees safe, that we are going to start staggering their schedules. They will come back in full force, but their start times will change a little. Their lunch times will be staggered as well, and their leave times will be staggered. But everyone will be back into full swing of things on May 4th in the service department. In City Hall, again, we had been staggering 1 week on, 1 week off. This will go back into full force on May 5th. The employees will all be here. There's adequate spacing here at City Hall, so that is not a concern. This goes true as for the Recreation Center and the Senior Center as well. We are looking at everything that we need to comply with the governor's orders as far as face masks, distancing, sanitary things, and we will be prepared for everybody to come back and working on May 4th. In our Recreation Center, Jack Abruzzi did give an update on social media. He also sent out to anybody who is registered with My Sportsman for any activities or members of the Recreation Center, giving updates of what things were going on there and what they're projecting. Also on his social media explained many of the different options. Everyone is here to take phone calls, and they've been handling that as needed, but every account was credited if you signed up for an activity for your child or for yourself. And if you wanted reimbursement, they were extending those reimbursements as requested. Additionally, one of the things that we've been trying to monitor is the parks. At first, we did not want to put up the caution tape everywhere just because it just doesn't look very attractive. But we were having a problem early on with people not complying with the orders, and we did have to put that caution tape back up. And there is some hesitation, and he's been trying to get as much information out as possible for people to understand what they can and can't do with parks. I know we've had some questions with that. Can I go out and throw a Frisbee with my friend? Yeah, of course you can. Just make sure you're social distancing and not just sitting there hanging around for no reason. But we're trying to make sure people still get outside and enjoy themselves while keeping the adequate distance. And so he's put out some information on that as well. The recreation center is just a big question mark right now. I know Jack spoke for like 16 or 18 minutes on social media and did the best he can to explain the current situation. But bottom line is we're not there yet. We don't have adequate direction in order to tell people how we're going to function when things keep rolling back into place until the governor either lifts the 10-person rule or the opening up of the recreation center. So we want to be very cautious on what we put out there to residents. Don't get people's hopes up too quickly because we don't know how long this is going to last. I would say the one thing that I would implore parents to do that we're thinking of our summer camp is to have an alternative option, because it looks like we will have no other choice but not to have summer camp this year. And if we do have summer camp, it will be in a very modified, very scaled down version. So do look at alternative options going forward. In our senior center, early on, I talked to Karen and approved about $2,000 worth of expenditures for food. She used that $2,000 and she had a food pickup day using my senior center as a call out, helping residents with some non-perishable foods. And she's been delivering, and Kathy's been delivering food to those particular seniors that are in need. They've gone grocery shopping. Our senior van is still functioning for necessary appointments and grocery shopping this entire time. Unfortunately, our seniors aren't on social media. And so those call outs directly using my senior center app have been important and been a good reach out. And of course, as I said at the beginning, they've been taking their time going through the list and calling people and seeing how seniors are doing and checking on our most vulnerable population as best as they can. They have a group of volunteers that have offered to go grocery shopping, and many of them utilize this group of volunteers, and they will pick up whatever they need so they don't even have to leave their house. As far as city events go, we are canceling Memorial Day as we typically have it. It's just too close to what we have, and it's too big of a crowd, especially with the 10 limit right now. We are trying to look at an alternative way that we can celebrate and honor those who have fallen for this country. So we're exploring those options, and as soon as we know more, I'll have the Recreation Center put something out. Overall, I'd have to say with what's going on, there are some things that we're concerned about financially, of course, as previously said, but we are in a good financial state. I mean, we're in the position, and I'm thankful to be in the position to be able to weather this storm. And of course, we're going to have to make decisions in case things continue to go down, and we do have to make some cuts. We will have our plan, alternative plan. But as of right now, we had our first couple of months of this year went better than expected, which leaves us even a cushion before this really kind of kicks in for us. So again, we're looking at those plans, but that does not include laying off or furloughing or terminating any kind of employees at this time. Our layoff for part-time workers is really for the lack of work. We were able to pay them for not working up until April 17th. I think we were probably the only city that really did that. So we're trying to take care of our residents and the people who work for us as best as we can, and we will continue to do that. One of the things I've heard from private business owners through the many conference calls that we have dealing with this subject is they are getting some pushback from employees not wanting to come back to work because of the extra pay that they're getting from the unemployment checks. So there are people who are out without checks right now and without work, and then depending on how much you were getting, who didn't qualify for unemployment if you made under $269 a week. But for some people who made above and qualify for the unemployment, they're actually getting paid more than that they did per week than if they were working. So some of them don't want to come back to work, and that's what some employers are facing right now. So that is a question and a concern when you look at it from a business standpoint on things. My concern moving forward, I did have a conference or a phone call with the president of University Hospital Parma on Friday, and I asked him, knowing his medical expertise, if the governor were to open things up on Monday, what his position is what he would recommend with that kind of medical expertise. And his comment to me was to take things slow. Of course, we're going to have to start pushing things back to normal. He said how people are afraid to come to the hospital right now for anything. Their numbers are so low. So they need to educate people about how they're separating people, but they don't want to see long-term health effects from keeping people away from the hospitals, whether that be heart disease or dealing with stroke issues or anything like that. So they want people to start coming back so they can treat long-term illnesses as well. But we're going to have to be cautious here. We're going to have to be cautious on how fast we pick up things, how fast we open up buildings or programs. And so my comment to everybody is just be patient with us. We're going to do the best we can with the knowledge that we have, and make sure that our residents are safe, our employees are safe, and we look at all the different viewpoints when making the decisions. Some other things I wanted to talk about that are not COVID related include the ACO. I just want to advise City Council that we did renew our contract with Parma Heights for our animal control officer till October 2021. That contract is terminable, can be terminated by either party at any time. One COVID-related thing that I missed is that we are tracking costs. Every director has been sending our finance director all the costs that we're having to buy for personal protective gear or anything else, cleaning. We're hoping to get a 75% reimbursement with that. But again, there's no guarantee on anything, and we're going to function as if we're not going to get reimbursed for anything or see any kind of money back with any kind of stimulus funds, because I think that that's how we have to function going forward. Another thing, the exterior grant program, we haven't seen as many applications as we have in the past. So I just want to remind people that option is available, as we have the supplemental grant money on our agenda tonight. We did $50,000 from the county, and the city is funding $50,000. We still want people to try to use those grant dollars. So right now, the deadline for that grant application is June 1st. Depending on how many applications we get, we may extend it, but I will reach out to City Council if that is the case. Again, I want to remind people about the census. I know people think this is crazy that the government's still trying to remind people about the census while all this is going on. But bottom line is, that's how we depend on funding in our area. That's how our representatives are picked, and people who rely on different things like SNAP or Medicaid or different things to help people in need. That is how we determine the amount of money we get to the area. So please, if you have not filled out the census, City Council, I know Tom gave you a list of talking points. If you could remind people, this is important for funding in our area. Ready Notify, I would like to do another push for Ready Notify and make sure that people are signed up for this county. It's just the number of people are just too low. And again, that reliance on the Sportsman program and My Senior Center to direct notify those different groups on things have been so tremendous in this particular area because of the amount of people that are not on Ready Notify. I know the kind of flip-flop of our program from Code Red, Ready Notified, Code back to code red through the county has been confusing for people. And at one point we were sending out a lot of alerts, or they want particular alerts. But you can set those type of alerts on how you want to receive it, whether email or text or voicemail, and tell which kinds that you want to receive. So just educate people that it won't be the way it was a couple years ago. It's different, and they can set those parameters up. One thing that is on the agenda tonight is also how we received the community development block grant for $150,000 for Marquare Park. You'll see that in the change in the capital plan tonight. I just want to remind people what's included in phase 1. That's the walking trail, the playground features, and the pavilion shade structures. And as soon as Jack gets some end plans for that, he'll send that out. He is looking at the quotes right now. And then my last thing is we did terminate our contract with McCulley and Company. It terminates at the end of this month. So if you have any social media stuff, I know a couple of you use them to push out your social media stuff. If you have stuff, then go right back to Mary Jo for that information. She'll be back running that. At this time, we haven't done much printed publications because of what's happening. We had a city newsletter that was ready to go out, but it announced Memorial Day stuff. It reminded people about a bunch of events that we just knew we couldn't announce and waste the postage of sending everything out to know that it was probably going to get canceled. So we've kind of taken a backseat of printing publications, and that includes in the active and fit. So as soon as we know more, we could get some of that stuff rolling again. But with McCulley, it didn't make sense to continue that contract on during this time where we don't know 100% financially where we're going to be. And with the addition of Jeremy and ED, he has a background in some of that stuff, so he can take over that, and Mary Jo as well on the social media aspect. I know you may have some questions. I know that was a long discussion, so let me know if you have anything for me.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that very thorough report and all the updates. Yes, Mrs. Pucci?
Okay. Regarding the contract with McCulley, if at some point, and clearly, not right away because of everything that's going on, but if we could have a final analysis, I know that they did apply for quite a few grants on our behalf, and they were fairly successful at that. So if we could have an analysis of the grants that they applied for, how much they brought in, I think that would be very helpful. I certainly understand why we don't want to commit at this point, but I think moving forward in the future, it might be helpful for us to have that information as to basically the cost benefit. The other thing on the Ready Notify, which I know we've talked about numerous times, and I understand, every time I've brought it up to directors, I've been told that our numbers are just too low. We've got to do something about that. I mean, whether it's, setting up a computer at the senior center as the people come in and making sure we assist them, or even, maybe even do it for them. And maybe even at other city functions. So many other cities right now are able to use that tool so effectively with communicating with their residents. And I know that, I've announced it at council. I know the mayor's announced it before, but somehow the message is just not getting through. And I think, as we get through this, we really need to look at what can we do proactively to actually, even if we have to have a laptop at city functions, to have people sign up, because it's such an important tool. And like the mayor mentioned, you can get, if you want a phone call, if you want an email, if you want the text message, and, just even without the pandemic, other communities are able to send out reminders on the road construction and so many different things. So somehow we've got to think outside the box and actually figure out a way where we can actually assist people in signing up. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on with director's reports. We have just one this evening, and that is from our finance director, Mr. Raguse.
Good evening, City Council. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Tom. Thank you.
Yep.
I do have a couple of reports for City Council tonight. The first item is our bond anticipation notes will be pricing next week of $2.5 million. I had a phone call with our municipal advisor earlier this afternoon. At this time, we're expecting a rate on these notes to be between 1.3 and 1.55%. For comparison purposes, our notes that were issued last year, our current notes that were issued last year, has a rate of 1.75. So we're anticipating a rate below what we're currently paying, which is always good news. And of course, I'll keep City Council updated on the process and what our final rate was. On my email to City Council on Thursday, I mentioned that the budget work session that was originally scheduled for June 1st has been delayed to the fall due to the current situation and the unknown revenue ramifications that the COVID-19 will have on our financial situation. I've been working with Council President Van Kirk, and we are looking to schedule the tentative dates in the fall for October 19th, November 2nd, and November 16th if necessary. So we're going to place a placeholder on the third meeting on the 16th. These are all offsetting Mondays from the regular scheduled council meetings. I'll be setting those dates out to City Council as part of my report next week. And then lastly, I sent the March financial report on board docs and also emailed a copy to City Council. So I just want to briefly give an overview of the March financials and talk specifically about the items related to the COVID-19. So through March, through the first quarter of 2020, our overall revenues are 26% of the amount and are up 11% more than prior year. All of that as a result of an increase in income tax collections of 11% through March. Our overall commitments are 36% of the budgeted amount and are 7% higher compared to March 2019, which overall results in a decrease in the unencumbered balance by $1.4 million to a balance of $15.3 million. All of that is attributed to the outstanding encumbrances that we have of $1.8 million. I do have a section related to the financial effect related to the COVID-19. I do want to talk about. We all know our biggest revenue source in the general fund and in our overall city operations are income tax revenues. So RITA has done analysis for all the municipalities, all of their clients pertaining to a potential loss in income tax revenue. They estimated that our loss will be around $1.4 million. Approximately $1.2 million of this is in the general fund. This is a conservative estimate by RITA. They tend to be very, very conservative in their estimates. So we will continually assess the information. I will provide City Council with updates as far as the actual income tax loss is concerned. We're also going to be expecting a delay in cash flow as a result of the extension of the filing deadline from April 15th to July 15th. It's also important to note that when we budgeted the revenue for the general fund income tax revenue, we did budget $900,000 less than prior year, which is a conservative amount. And you will see as part of the April financial report that income taxes will be approximately $1.1 million more in the general fund than compared to April 2019. So our distribution in April that we received was substantially higher than what we experienced in April 2019. Also, not in my financial report, but I do need to talk about this and want to talk about this. You may have seen a couple of articles on Cleveland.com regarding potential refunds to taxpayers who are working from home. So as a refresher, State House Bill 197 that was passed last month modified the 20-day rule with regards to individuals working remotely from home, in which they allow the company to withhold the income taxes based upon their principal place of work rather than their remote location. So basically, if you're working at Key Bank on Tiedemann Road, now you're working from home, you're withholding income taxes as if you were working on Tiedemann. So this House bill went into effect when the state of emergency was declared on March 9th, and will terminate 30 days after the emergency is lifted. There's a question out there that is being considered is if this is allowable. So what the state legislator did, there's some questions as far as the allowability of this. The legislation does not mention any refunds on this matter. So I did have a discussion with Rita. They don't know where this is going to go. They do anticipate it may take a longer amount of time. And so we will continually assess this situation with Rita, and they'll keep me updated on any progress. If the decision is made to grant refunds to these taxpayers, this could be potentially a substantial loss to the city. So Rita will not, if they were to grant a decision, Rita wouldn't be able to tell me the estimated amount because they would not know how many people would apply for these refunds. So we will keep an eye out on that, and I will update City Council with regards to that. Other revenue sources that we did experience a decline in March, we did experience a decline in recreation center revenue of about $30,000 as compared to March 2019. Other revenues, which I will keep an updated amounts of and report this as part of my monthly financial report, we expect declines in other revenue sources such as interest revenue, permits, mayor's court, local government funding, hotel tax, and the gas tax. As the mayor pointed out, we are not planning on making any cuts to operations this year, and we will update the financial forecast based upon the revenue situation later spring, early summer, and we will be prepared to discuss any budget modifications or financial forecast modifications as part of the budget work session meetings to be conducted in the fall. That concludes my report. I don't know if there's any questions from any council members.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, Mrs. Pucci has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you for the report, Tom. Two quick questions. I know that Andy had been contacting some of our employers. We have a sense of two different things. First, how many of our major employers, how many employees they may have laid off, and then the second category would be how many working from home, remote.
I'm sorry,
Mrs. Pucci, you're breaking.
Yeah, you're breaking.
That's okay, Tom. Mrs. Pucci, you're breaking up really bad.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Try
you
again.
You can hear me, Tom? Okay. I know that Andy was contacting our employers. I'm just wondering if we have a sense yet of one from our major employers, how many they may have laid off and how many may be working remotely from home.
Yeah, Mrs. Pucci, you're breaking up. Mrs. Pucci, you're breaking up. I think I got you, what she was saying. Tom, she's wanting to know if we have an idea of how many employees are laid off in the city and how many are working at home, if we have any idea what that is.
I put together a spreadsheet for Economic Development Director Andy Udris to contact our top 15 employers. We do know that a substantial amount of key bank employees are working from home. I believe that percentage is about 95% that we know of. We know that employees from Inogen, or a substantial amount from Inogen, are also working from home. We don't know of any permanent layoffs at this time, but that's one of the questions that is on the spreadsheet that I've sent to the Economic Development Director. So we're still doing research on that. We don't know of any substantial layoffs that I know of. We do know that there's a substantial portion of our larger employers, the workforce there, that are working from home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I could add to that a little bit. We've only received one more notification as of today, and that was just from one of our local restaurants. And the layoff was just, and it touched upon all of the restaurants in every single city because it's a chain restaurant. So, I sent out the economic development report to all of you from the county. And I did that because I don't think we're seeing the full amount of numbers come back to us being mayors. One of the things that we're concerned at is, the delay of Medical Mutual, of course. There's no plans to stop the number of employees that were coming in. It's just they're delaying on who they're bringing here because so many people are working from home and in what timeline. But again, I think we should be very cautious taking a look at those county numbers. And if you compare it to the state's numbers, the sheer amount of WARN notices in our county and the sheer amount of different sectors and businesses that are going to impact the county. Again, we go back, it's been unfortunate that the previous governor took so much of the local government funding, but the benefit to that is we're not as reliant on that, but I think we're going to see some cuts coming down through the state as the county and the state are going to be struggling through the sales tax. They're going to be the ones that are going to be hit first and hardest. And I think that taking a look at that information I sent you out from the last economic development meeting from the county would be very helpful to know that I think our region is probably going to get impacted much greater than a lot of other regions in the state of Ohio.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Are there any other questions for Mr. Raguse? I think my report. Right, this time we'll move on with our meeting this evening. We'll start with legislation. As was previously mentioned, we do have two notifications, and the first of which is the $50,000 development supplemental grant, and this is the exterior home repair program the mayor talked about. And so Brooklyn was approved that, and we will kick another $50,000 for this. The city will, and so applications are currently being received for that. Next is the $150,000 in the community development block grant for the Marquardt Park revitalization project. And again, the mayor I mentioned to that, and that's to do phase one of the revitalization project in Marquardt Park. Then next, we do have a request from Mr. Verba. Dear Mayor and members of council, I hereby request authorization to enter an agreement with Cargill Salt Division in cooperation with the Brecksville Purchasing Consortium. Cargill Dicing Technology has agreed to extend the sodium chloride contract for November 1, 2020 through October 31, 2021 are the same terms as the current contract. And they are as follows. The pricing for 1920 is $63.41 per ton untreated. Our estimated quantity currently remains at 2,800 tons. There's no charge of storage of contractual balances on current contract from November 1 through December 31 of this year. If we do not reach the minimum from the 1920 contract by the end of 2020, we'll be charged a monthly storage charge of $15 per ton per month until the remaining balance is purchased. The same terms as last year, 80% minimum, 140% maximum, and the same 24 to 72 hour delivery guarantee as outlined in the 2018 bid specification. To update our current contract, we'll still need to purchase 1,755.35 tons to meet our minimum commitment for the 19 contract. We'll fill up our dome, which is in October, which is estimated to hold another 800 tons. That will leave us with 955.35 tons that need to be purchased by December 31. If it is a bad November and December, that should not be a problem. If it's mild, we'll have to pay a storage fee for the remaining balance. And the consortium has been very good to us. I know a couple of years ago when we had a very severe winter, many cities were running out of salt, but because Brooklyn was a part of this consortium, we were fine. And although we've had some fairly mild winters the last couple of years, we obviously can't bank on that. And so that is a request to approve that. Are there any comments or questions on that request?
Move to authorize the agreement with the Brecksville Purchasing Consortium for salt.
Second.
To authorize, Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
I got it. Go ahead.
Did he say yes? Sue Grodick?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Belbeer?
Yes.
Thank you. There are two items on the agenda this evening. The first is ordinance 2020-17, and this is to authorize the updated capital improvement plan for 2020 And what this does is this includes the $150,000 from the CDBG grant for Marquardt Park. And we are going to attempt to pass this by suspension of the rules this evening. Are there any comments or questions regarding that? All right, I'll introduce by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belvier.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belvier.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Before we move on to the next ordinance, 2020-18, I know Council President Van Kirk had a few questions for me earlier. I'm thankful that he reminded me about the extension for this. It just slipped both the law director and my mind. The one thing, as we have not opened up fully, that we foresee using this ordinance for is, again, as employees deal with childcare issues, looking at the school closures for the rest of the year and daycare options for the summer. The one thing is being a little bit more flexible with our sick time than we typically do. That is the one thing that personally that I would need that ordinance to permit me to do, but that is about it. I know Mr. Van Kirk was, I don't want to speak for you, but concerned about the extent moving forward. And that is all I foresee at this particular time, unless the law director has anything to add.
Any other comments or questions regarding this ordinance to City Council? All right, so this is ordinance 2020-18 and amending Section 3 of Ordinance 2020-16 adopted on 3/16/2020 entitled Enacting Uncodified Regulations with Respect to Employee Pay and Fringe Benefits and Public Meetings in order to respond to the 2020 COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic and declaring emergency. And this will allow City Council as well to continue meeting in this format until we can back together again. And also gives the mayor the liberty to do things he's already done. As she just mentioned, the only thing that she foresees right now is to be more flexible with their sick time. And this will expire on May 31st of 2020. Any other comments or questions? Introduced by all.
rules.
Second.
Need a second, please?
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belvier.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci, Mary Belvier.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just for posterity, I wanted to make sure that Councilwoman Pooch vote on that last ordinance was recognized. Did you hear the vote?
I did not hear her, but I saw her. So if Kathy would like to vote a yes for the adoption, that's what I need to hear.
I said yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci. Thank you, Mr. Butler. Okay, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Just to kind of give council an update, our next scheduled meeting is May the 11th of 2020. And as of right now, we will continue in this format online due to the governor today still prohibiting meetings over 10. However, if that changes before now and then, we will meet here, of course, if we can. But I'll be in touch with council. More than likely, that will not change. But if it does, I'll be in touch with council. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. Mayor or any other council members, or Mr. Butler or Tom, have anything else to add? Okay, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thanks, council. And stay safe. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.